English is the most widely spoken language in the world, with over 400 million native speakers and over 700 million people who speak it as a second language. Hi, my name is Ivan Pedroso, and today I'm going to show you how I learned English. As you may know, I'm from Brazil, and in Brazil our mother language is Portuguese, of course. And like most countries, English is taught in schools to kids, so they grow up learning how to speak a second language, which usually is English. And so you start in first grade and you go up until your senior year. So that's 12 years of education that you're constantly being exposed to the English language. But after 12 years, I wasn't able to speak English. And that happens to most Brazilian kids and most kids around the world. And you know why? Because we use the wrong methods to teach our kids how to speak a language. I began learning English still in school with just simple words like be, tree, dad, mom, the colors, the numbers. But I soon realized that that wasn't going to be enough. I was never going to be able to speak freely with that English. And so I went ahead and I looked for an English class with an English teacher, a private teacher. And I started having lessons when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I kept there using that traditional method, which is what I call it. What is the traditional method? Traditional method is when you go to an English school or a language school and you say, hey, I want to learn a language. Okay, which language do you want to learn? Okay, I want to learn English. And they give you an assessment to see what kind of level you have. And they put you in a classroom full of people supposedly with your same level, with the same level of yours. And so you buy a book, a textbook, and the teacher comes into the classroom and they give you like the lesson, which is usually a grammar lesson. There's a couple of exercises. The teacher gives you time to do that homework, and they correct you. You talk for like 5 minutes, then you go home. When you go home, you never touch that book again. That's the traditional method. This method is really inefficient because you don't have exposure to the language. Think about it. How did you learn your first language? It could be French, English, Portuguese, whatever. How did you learn it? You had constant exposure to it every day. As a baby, your mom would talk to you every day, all of the time. The TV would be on and you would be constantly exposed to those sounds that you were learning. That's how you try to pronounce your first words in your mother language. So why do we do the opposite when we're trying to learn the second language? Why don't we use this method that we used for our mother language to learn a second language? And so I began going to these courses and I felt like I wasn't progressing enough and I wasn't happy about it because I'm the type of person that I want things efficient, I want things quickly. And so when I realized that I wasn't reaching the level that I wanted to, and the level that I want to is to be able to speak freely, be able to understand native speakers talking, and that was not the case for me. And so I did that for about 5 years, and when I was 13 years old, I said, okay, this is not working. I went to the manager's office at the language school and I said, I'm not progressing as much as I wanted to. I actually don't want to do this anymore. And they came to me and they said, well, there are these conversation classes, which is meant for businessmen. If you go there, you're going to be the only kid, but I think your level is good enough so that you can keep up with it. And so I tried it. And I went to this classroom, which had a British teacher, and he couldn't speak Portuguese. So that was one plus side of it, because all of my prior teachers could speak Portuguese, and so they would explain the concept of the English language to me in Portuguese, not in English. And that's one main flaw of the traditional system. And so I got to this conversation class, and there was a bunch of people, and they had really good levels of English, although they couldn't speak fluidly, I would say. And when I got there, it was clear to me that all of those years that I spent trying to learn English in the traditional method was inefficient. I wouldn't say it was a waste of time because I could already kind of speak English, but it was really, really inefficient because I got there and there was a teacher talking to me only in English, and I had trouble understanding him. I was struggling to understand a teacher even after 5 years of studying English every week. That for me is unacceptable. Okay, and so I spent a couple of months in that class, a couple of years actually. And when I was 15 years old, I moved to the United States. And that was a big shock to me. Why? Because when I got to the United States, I realized two things. First, they really do speak English. It's funny to say that, but it's completely different when you're in a classroom full of people trying to learn English and when you're there in real life. I mean, it was my first time abroad, and I got there and they were speaking English. The second realization that I had was my English was not good. What do I mean by that? Could I understand? Yes, but not all of it. I could still complain about native speakers speaking too fast, using slang words. It wasn't fluid. It was really hard for me. And I moved to a part of the United States which is known to have a southern accent, which made everything harder to me. I lived in Kentucky and they speak really different. Okay, so I got to the United States and I realized my English wasn't really good, and all those years that I was trying to learn English, that was not really effective. Okay, but after, I would say, 2 months, I was already understanding everything. I could watch the news, I could go to the movies, I could speak to anyone about anything that I wanted to. Of course, I still had an accent and I was working on it, but I was speaking just as quickly as I am right now. I mean, to me, right now, it doesn't matter if I speak Portuguese or English. They're both good to me. And I asked myself a question. What happened in those 2 months that didn't happen in the prior years of my English learning? What made me progress so quickly? Of course, yes, I was living there, but was there a way to learn the language faster, even if I didn't live in the country that spoke that language? And so I looked for the answers, and the answer that I found was exposure. I was doing the same thing over and over again, and it was wrong. What was I doing? I would go to my English class, listen to the teacher, go back home, do my homework, and don't do anything else for the rest of the week, and then wait for the next English class. What happened then? I had 1 hour of exposure to the language every week, and 1 hour is not enough. I would say right now, with all the knowledge that I have in language learning, that you need at least 1 hour a day to learn a language, because you're going to progress so much quickly if you do that. And so what happened when I was in the United States? I had the exposure. Okay, but what if you don't have time or money, or there's something preventing you to move to that country that speaks that language you're trying to learn? You can do that in your own country if you have the right techniques. So if you know what to do, and if you know that the traditional method does not work, you can change the whole situation to learn a language faster. So that was my journey with English. English was both the easiest and hardest languages that I've learned. It was easy because Well, English is one of the easiest languages to learn. I mean, it doesn't have complex grammar structures. Vocabulary is close to the Romance languages, which makes it easier to learn. And plus, you have a bunch of content online, all of the movies, TV shows, you have YouTube videos, you have websites. I mean, English is by far the easiest language to learn. And I say it was the hardest because it was the first language that I learned. So I didn't know how to learn a language. I had to find out along the way how to learn a language. And so I spent way too much time trying to figure out how to learn a language. And so when I moved to my third language, I had all this knowledge from the English. I mean, not the English knowledge, but the knowledge that I've gotten through English about learning a new language. And so I learned my third language, which was German. And German is, I mean, harder than English, but it took me less time because I had this knowledge. So tell me about you. Do you know the right way to learn a language? Do you know the best way, the most effective way, which is not going to make you waste any time? Tell me here in the comment section below. And if you like this content, please subscribe. I'm always posting content about learning languages and making your life easier when you're trying to learn a new language. Thank you for watching and see you later.